Welcome to a sneak preview of ZORP Tables. It gives you an easy and a reliable way to store and manage your operational data. It's as simple as spreadsheets to use, but comes with better data quality controls, better access controls, automations, reporting, and many others. So today we will see how to create a table, how to create columns for a table, how do you create records, how do you create automations, and how do you create reports on top of it. We'll go through this one by one. But before we do that, you might ask, why did we build ZORP tables? It's not like the world needs yet another spreadsheet alternative, right? So our aim at ZORP has always been to make sure our customers run their operations efficiently. Now we've built several tools to help them do that. And one of the primary areas where companies run inefficient operations is when whole or part of their operation depends on spreadsheets. We all know why people get started with spreadsheets, because it's very easy. It can accommodate a lot of different use cases, and you can just quickly get started. But the problem is, the moment you start scaling a little bit, you start running into quality control issues. You have no idea who is accessing and who is changing what. You don't have a steady reporting framework on top of spreadsheets. It's all ad hoc analysis, and you also don't have a lot of automation or integration capabilities with other systems. But there are a few spreadsheet alternatives available in the market, but most of them focus on the project management side of things rather than working with core operational data. So that's what ZORP Tables wants to solve. Now, with that introduction, let's jump into how to create a table on ZORP. To create a table, just click on New Table here. Click on the drop-down and click on Create New Table. Let's create a table to store our customer information. So I'm going to call this Customers. All right. So now the table is created. That's it. So whenever you want to add new tables, just go ahead and add new tables. It's as simple as that. Now let's start adding some columns. So what kind of information about the customers do you want to store? Definitely the customer name. And ZORP also gives you different types of columns, including text, numbers, Boolean. You have dates, you have image, you have dropdown. Yeah, you can upload files. You can collect location. And there are some very interesting ones towards the end. So we'll go through each of these. Or we'll go through some other complex ones, not each of these. Okay, so now the customer name field is created. Similarly, I'll add something for the customer phone number. And this is a number field, and I can specify a particular field as mandatory. That means when you create records into this table, that field becomes mandatory, and users cannot create records without this particular field. There is another option called display column. This is something I'll talk about in the future. So I'm going to create. So next, let's add something like a location. So location is a very interesting type of where you can not only store the physical address, the textual address of a particular customer, but you can also store their latitude and longitude. So, I mean, these are optional. So if you don't have the latitude, you can actually ignore them. If you do have it, you can actually enter them there. So I'm going to say this is location. All right. Now let's add something called a computed column. So a computed column is very similar to a formula field in a spreadsheet. So you can create a compute column. You can write your own formula to use data from other columns in the same spreadsheet. You can create a computed column, write a formula to automatically calculate something from existing data in the same tables. So I can actually call this. So once I hit create, I'll have the option to write my formula. And once I write the formula, the data will actually get computed automatically. So the next one, we'll skip relation for a bit. Relations is a very interesting column. We'll talk about it in the end. But let's talk about buttons now. So button is basically, think of a button being placed in each of your rows. And when you click on the button, something happens. What can happen? There are two things that can happen. One is it can open a URL as in a new tab. Second one is it can run an automation. So we'll talk about automations in a bit. That's a huge topic in itself. But these are the two things that a button can actually initiate. So in this case, I can call it, it's a button, open, action is open URL, button style is, primary. Once I create, I'll have the option to enter the URL, and you will see how it looks in a bit. So before we go into relation, let's create a couple of records in our table. So to create a record, there are 3 ways. The easiest way is just click on create new table record, provide the details, whatever details you've given as mandatory. Obviously, relations will be shown, but computed columns, buttons, etc. will not be shown. All right. Okay, so now I hit create. Beautifully, you can see the customer name, the customer phone number, the location, and even the URL. Click on the URL, whatever link we provide should have actually. Now, let's talk about relationship column. Okay, so a relation column is basically a connector between two separate tables. Now, imagine that you have a customers table and the customers place orders, right? So you might want to start tracking different orders in a different table. Okay. And how do you link customers and orders is through the relations column. So let's say first just create another table called orders. What are the order information? Let's quickly click order ID, the text. We can also create the status, which is a drop. So drop down provides this beautiful status kind of options with different color coding. You can change the colors according to whatever your needs are. You can provide the statuses. All right, so now I can. The next one is the customer information. So now one option I have is create the customer ID, the name, and all these location and all these fields again in another on this table. Or all I can do is I can simply link to the customers table. In order to link to it, I use a relation type. It says relation to, the relation towards customers. And is there a one-to-one or one-to-many? That means, does each order correspond to multiple customers? No, in orders typically belong to only one customer in most of the scenarios. So it becomes one-to-one. Hit create. Now, let me create an order. Open, provide the order detail, 234. Order status can be new and customer. As you see, some random text. But we want the name of the customer over. If you remember, when we created the customer table, there was an option called make this a display column. So what make this a display column does is whenever somebody refers to it, it knows what is the primary field name it should actually show up as a reference for you. Right now, by default, we pick up the ID. So if I make this a display column and go back to orders and create a new order, now I see what about. And done. Now this is how relations actually work. And I will be able to access other information from the customer into this table just using this relation if I actually want. So we'll get into that in the future videos. Automation is an easy way to trigger a custom action when something happens on your table, right? For example, when let's say a new record gets created in customers, you want to send a welcome message via email to your customers. Or when a record gets deleted, you might want to update your internal database, removing the customer, mark them as deleted. So, or when the status changes, sending a message or a text message to the customer saying that the order is in progress. You can do a lot of stuff like this. Now let's see how we can use automations. There are 2 ways you can actually invoke automation. So one is when a button is clicked. As we saw before, all you have to do is click on the settings, change the option to run automations and configure your automations. That is one way. The second one is a table level automation. This you can start by simply clicking on automations, create a new automation, and there are 4 options available. So we'll go through this one by one. The first one is adding a trigger. Adding a trigger is simply what is a trigger for this automation. So it could be either the record is created, the record is updated, or record is deleted. Now the next one is called a validation. Now, let's say the record is getting updated. The status moved from in progress to completed. Now you might not want to always allow this action to happen. You might want to put some checks and balances in place whether this is a valid change. For example, if the status change is not allowed to be done to completed for a customer who is not active. So you can actually put those kind of custom validations in place over here. And if the validation fails, the action does not get executed, gets blocked right there and there. Now the third one is adding an action. So we'll look at adding an action and then come to conditions. So action is basically what is the action you want to perform. There are 2 actions we support. One is calling an external API. It could be for any other system, either internal or external for that matter. Simply provide all the details over here, hit save, and the integration will be complete. The next one is writing a script. In the future, we are adding more options around creating a Zap, sending an email, sending a Slack message, etc., etc. So you'll see more options available over here. Now coming to conditions. So conditions is a logic which says whether the action should be executed or not. For example, let's say the customer has provided a preferred channel, either a WhatsApp or let's say an email. Now that condition can be applied over here. So if the condition is email, send an email. Add another action block. If the condition is WhatsApp, send a WhatsApp message. So this is what you can actually play around to create an automation. So once you're done with it, just simply click save automations. Your automations are saved and it start firing the next time you start using the tables. Hopefully automations is clear. So the last bit I want to talk about today is reporting. No operation system is complete without a very comprehensive reporting framework, and that's what ZORP provides. So any data you create in ZORP tables gets instantly available in our reporting framework. Our reporting framework is called Chronos, and you'll find an option that's right in the sidebar to access it. Click on Chronos. The first time you have to activate Chronos so that all your data actually gets synced. It takes a few seconds, and Chronos is all set up for you to execute. It's a full-fledged business intelligence interface for it to work with your data. So here I can go to charts, click on create a new chart, choose customers or orders I wanted to work with. Let's say customers, choose a type of graph I want to work with. There are so many of them available for you, but let's get something normal. So let's say this is a big number. So create a new chart. So here I can provide these options simply through drag and drop. For example, the metric could be the number of customers. I can say like number of record IDs. So count of listing record IDs, create chart, and I see the number as 1. So let me change the chart to, let's say, a bar chart. And the x-axis, I can give something like create a timestamp. And I can simply look at the number of records or the customer name. Create chart. So now we have a bar chart which is available. You can quickly save this chart in whatever format you want. You can either add to the existing default dashboard or you can create your own dashboards. Save to new dashboard. Now I can go to the dashboards. I can see that the customer dashboard is created. Just here, save, and I can easily embed the dashboard to ZORP if you want to maintain it permanently. Now I simply go back to the ZORP interface, refresh, and you will see the customer dashboard available instantly. Same platform for everybody in your team to see and access it. Hopefully reporting is very clear. I hope that you're able to get a good sense of ZORP tables and it is going to be helpful to you in your operations.